Welcome to this episode of the Baby Let's Talk podcast. In this episode, I had the pleasure of talking to Niklas Gustafson, who is an animal-based health expert, entrepreneur, and author. Niklas Gustafson is a leading voice in animal-based holistic nutrition and an advocate for a return to real, unprocessed food. Diagnosed with celiac disease before his first birthday, Niklas spent his early years struggling with food restrictions before discovering his passion for nutrition. Determined to heal himself naturally, he immersed himself in understanding how food impacts the body, ultimately shaping his lifelong mission, helping people take back control of their health through better eating habits. Now a certified expert in dietetics and human nutrition, Niklas is the founder of Natruly, a company dedicated to making real food accessible, and he's the author of the book Hungry for Change, where he shares his philosophy on eating to thrive. He is also the host of the Hungry for Change podcast, where he challenges mainstream dietary and health norms and exposes the hidden truths of the food and health industry. With over 3 decades of experience and a deep belief in the power of food to transform lives, Niklas champions an ancestral diet based on 4 pillars: no processed foods, no sugar, low carbs, and embracing healthy fats. His approach is rooted in science, personal experience, and a passion for helping others break free from the cycle of modern food addiction. Beyond nutrition, Niklas is a dedicated athlete, a father of 5, and an advocate for an active, well-balanced lifestyle. Through his work, he continues to inspire millions to rethink their relationship with food and build a healthier, happier future. I hope you'll enjoy this one. On to the podcast. Hi, Niklas, and thank you for coming on to my podcast. Could you just begin with a short introduction and background? Who are you and what led you to focus on nutrition and health?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored. I'm from Sweden. I came to when I was a kid. I've always been intolerant to gluten. So I suppose my interest, my food interest, or then my food passion started in early years. I always had to to read the food labels. I had to be, careful when I was a kid. When I was invited to birthday parties, to friends, I couldn't eat what the other kids ate. So I started to realize that I was special in that way. And then I was actually in the kitchen with my grandmothers, both of them, and they were helping me to find a way to make a nice gluten-free bread. So we started experimenting in the kitchen since I was a kid. And I found it, I liked it a lot. I always liked being in the kitchen. And little by little, what I experienced was what I actually implemented. New recipes, new ways of making cookies and bread, and but also all kinds of, not just like pastry, but also like cooking in general. So then when I became older, I moved to Spain from Sweden when I was 20, almost 30 years old.
Yeah.
I loved Spain. I had no family here, but me and my girlfriend at that time, we decided we wanted to move here, and we moved to Madrid. And there were several things that I liked about Spain. And people actually, they asked me, why did you move? And I think one of the main reasons was for health reasons, because to be out in the sun, to be able to do sports outdoors all year. Also the food here is amazing, meat, fish, seafood, vegetables, and fruit. There's a huge variety. So so we moved here, and then we didn't. The idea was not to stay here forever, but I've been here for 25 years now, and we're still here.
Yeah.
And the family has grown. We have 5 kids, and
wow.
So here we are.
That's awesome. But how has your journey shaped your philosophy on food and health?
Yeah. So I would say that until I was 40 years old, more or less, my diet was pretty based on carbs. I ate a lot of, since I didn't eat bread and pasta that much, I mean, not even gluten-free pasta or bread that much. It was based on potato and rice, basically. And when I was about 4 years old, I heard about the paleo diet. I got interested, and actually, it was a friend of mine. She was running a paleo restaurant in LA, in the US, and I just wanted to experiment more, and I was trying to implement the paleo kitchen into my own kitchen. So that's where I started to reduce sugar first, to skip the sugar, and then also quit potato and rice and basically all refined carbs, which I liked the way my body responded to that. So I became more and more strict, and I got closer to a carnivore diet. But it was like little by little. It wasn't just like from one day to another.
No.
So maybe when I was 45 or so, my diet was basically carnivore or animal based. I think it's better to say, because I still had a lot of fruit, and it's not like 100% carnivore. There were times actually when I went even more keto. And but I've been experimenting a lot in general, which I do like. And to be honest, I'm still experimenting a lot. Like 3-4 weeks ago, I went almost like keto again. Because I realized I eat a lot of fruit because I love fruit, but maybe it was like excessively. So I decided to cut down on fruit. And now what I do is, like, in the mornings I have a cup of herbal tea with 5 egg yolks, a spoon of butter, a spoon of olive oil, and then I don't eat until 2 o'clock, which is normal lunch time in Spain. And at lunchtime, I don't eat any carbs at all. Then it's like carnivore. I eat or beef or pork or fish, whatever. And but in the evenings, I do have fruit, a little bit, not that much, but I tend to sleep better when having some carbs in the evening.
Yeah, I get that. But what was your turning point in kind of embracing an all animal-based diet? Did you have like one turning point? You talked about your gluten intolerance, but is there something else that's kind of been like a big turning point for you?
You know, I ran so many marathons. I did Ironmans, triathlons. I always thought that I was in great shape, but still, I would say that I noticed those sugar spikes, because my diet was very based on carbs, as I said, and I wanted to like flatten those spikes. And that was what actually drove me to try to get like more I want my diet to be more based on protein and fat than carbs. And that's, I think, what's so amazing with when you get your fuel, when you get your energy from fats instead of from carbs, that flattens those spikes. And I think that's I know that most people, that they don't even thought about it that way, but I mean, if you start to experiment with fat as fuel, then you realize that you can stay much more focused. You can also skip a meal or two without any problem, because you don't get that. You don't get nervous because you're super hungry immediately. Which I think more people should. I encourage more people to experiment in that way.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way we kind of get to know our body, and what's best for each and every one of us is to experiment with different types of diets. But in your opinion, what do you, from what you've learned, because you have a master's degree in nutrition, right?
That's right.
Yeah. What's kind of, in your opinion, the optimal diet for humans, and why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think that the ideal diet, the optimal diet, is some kind of diet that we had a long time ago. You know, that's why I think the paleo diet is the best one, because genetically, we are still, our genetics is the same genetics like in the Paleolithics, where like 10,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago, we haven't changed basically anything. Maybe we mutated and we can digest lactose, which we couldn't 50,000 years ago. But basically, we're the same human being as then. So I believe that the optimal diet is a paleo diet. You know, our body is not designed to have ultra processed food. That's for sure. You know,
Yeah.
refined sugars, processed carbs, and processed seed oils. That's not what we are designed to thrive on.
Yeah.
So, and another very important thing is that when you ask for the turning point, when I stopped eating vegetables in the way that I ate vegetables before, that was also something that I noted that my body actually was starting to thrive in another way. So I do think that a lot of people eat too much of like spinach, broccoli, kale, and even legumes and grains. That's not something that we are meant to have a lot of.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's there are so many different things, compounds about vegetables that we are actually not evolutionary designed to handle, and they're often packed with defense chemicals like anti-nutrients, which are their defense mechanism against being killed or eaten. That's at least, yeah. So I agree. To sum it up, what you said, that the optimal diet for humans is something that aligns with our evolutionary history, what we are evolutionary designed to handle, right?
Totally. Yeah, and the defense chemicals is also another topic that most people haven't heard of, you know?
No?
Actually, and I learned about that when I studied nutrition 10 years ago. I didn't know about defense chemicals before. But I mean, it's if you take a look at nature, animals, they can fight, they can flee, but the plants, they are where they are, and they can't run away and they can't fight back. So they have their defense chemicals like oxalates, like lectins, you know, and also what you need to understand is that the grains and legumes, that's the babies of nature. And just like we humans or animals, we protect our babies, you know, as the most precious we have. So the babies is what is most protected. So grains and legumes, seeds are very much protected and defended by nature, which means that if we have too much of them, we get bloated, we get all kinds of symptoms and reactions.
Yeah. What are the biggest food myths that mainstream nutrition keeps pushing, in your opinion?
There are so many myths, so it's kind of hard to pick one or two or three. But I mean, if you go back in time, maybe like 6 or 7 decades in the 60s, 50s, 60s, there was this myth about cholesterol, about animal fats, saturated fats, that they are bad for you, and they would and you will get a heart attack basically if you have eggs, butter, bacon. But this was a misunderstanding or confusion, or maybe if you see it as a conspiracy, it was totally, everything was planned by the food industry, because it's very easy to make money on carbs. So if you demonize the fats, well, then you could sell carbs instead, because I mean the body has two kinds of fuels, or the fats or the carbs. So if you don't eat fat, well, then you need carbs as a fuel. So I think that myth about the animal fats being demonized, that is one of the main myths. And but it's interesting because the last 10 or 15 years, that is something that has been debunked. And the margarine sales have dropped a lot, and the butter is back. Butter is not, maybe old people or that were living in the 50s and the 60s, they still believe that butter is not good for you. But at the same time, I mean, young people today, they didn't experience that propaganda, because it's all propaganda, you know.
Yeah.
That's a myth that came and went. I don't believe that's a myth anymore. But I mean, another myth is that red meat is bad for you. You know, I'm sure you heard and you see a lot of propaganda. And why is that? Well, you can make a lot of money selling fake meat. You can make a lot of money, say, selling tofu. All those products are they're like margarine. You know, they're the margarine of today. They're products based on cheap ingredients, cheap raw material. For example, fake meat is basically pea protein mixed with seed oils and additives. So it's a product that is very cheap to make, and you sell it to the same price as meat, or even more expensive. The same thing with margarine. It was, it's a product that costs almost zero to make, and you can sell it to the same price as butter, while it's fake butter. So all those myths of the food that the food industry send out as propaganda, there are so many, and it's actually that is what makes people confused. You know, they confuse people.
Yeah. In your opinion, why should then animal foods be the foundation of a healthy diet? We have touched on this a little bit earlier, but why, Niklas, should animal foods be the foundation of our diet?
Because meat was what made us thrive for hundreds and thousands of years, maybe millions of years, and it is still, there's nothing as nutrient dense as meat. You know, you have everything, all the nutrients that we need, vitamins and minerals, fatty acids, proteins, fatty acids, amino acids, everything is there. So you can follow a carnivore diet and you won't need anything else. On the other hand, if you're vegan, you would need to supplement, because heme iron, choline, B12, there are so many nutrients, at least 12 or 15, up to 15 nutrients that you won't get if you don't eat meat, or at least dairy. You won't get them. So that's why we will always thrive on an animal diet.
So switching from a plant-based diet to an animal-based diet, that's something that, in your opinion, is what we should all maybe do.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have a look at if you give a child a plate with let's say meat and vegetables, what does the child go for first?
It goes for the meat always.
Of course, because it's the intuition tells all of us that the nutrients are in the meat, and the vegetables are complicated. You know, they have less nutrients. It's less nutrient dense, but also, as we said before, the defense chemicals are in the vegetables. So and then if you, on the same plate, you put some fruit, the child will eat the fruit as well, the fruit and the meat or the fish or whatever. But vegetables are always more complicated. So it's important, I think, to listen to what your intuition says.
Yeah. And while we're on the topic of, children, how would you, or how should parents think about feeding their children?
Yeah, that's such a good question. When you go to a restaurant, at least in most countries, in Spain for sure, you always get this menu with the kids menu and the adult menu, right? And I never really got that, because I always feed my kids what I eat. They should eat the same as we do, for several reasons. I mean, the kids menu is food. Look, nuggets, French fries, in Spain, croquetas, which is it's a lot of seed oils, a lot of carbs. Basically it's carbs. So I do get it from the point of the restaurant, because the margins are super high. It's much more complicated to make money on grass-fed beef, because the price is very high and you cannot charge that much.
Yeah.
When selling like nuggets, well, it's the price is very low, and you can have the margins are much higher. So what I think is that kids have to they should eat what we eat, and also because the habits you get from when you're a child, those are the habits that you bring when you get older. So I think that's super important to teach them that, yeah, you're part of, you eat what we eat. For example, my children, they have oysters when they are 3 months old. I love to see my kids enjoying oysters from when they're like babies. And my 4-year-old and 2-year-old, it's like the best they know. They know nothing more delicious than having oysters.
That's
my
awesome.
2-year-old can have like 4 or 5 huge oysters.
Yeah. Yeah, and I saw one of your content the other day that you were making burgers out of, what did you have? Some mixed meat and liver, and make it.
Yeah, so I mixed beef, actually from ribs, with liver and sweetbread.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can actually mix everything, anything that you have. Sometimes I mix also pork, pork belly, and and it's actually very easy to make those patties, the burgers, with anything that you have. And yesterday, actually, I got some pork liver from these typical Iberico porks that we have in Spain, and they are just amazing. They're delicious because they eat only acorns, which is something that pork normally they don't get. I mean, this is something that they've been outside in outdoors all year. And they only eat what comes from the trees, the fruit from the trees.
Yeah.
So it's nutritionally it's the best you can have. So making. I'm actually in a couple of days. I'm planning to make like a liver patty with these Iberico pork liver from Iberico pork. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But actually, that's a very good investment to have this meat grinder.
Yeah.
You can actually put anything. I mean, even chicken if you want.
Yeah. I've actually been thinking about that after I saw you making your own burgers, because I really want to get my kids used to eating liver, for example, heart. Yeah. They're never going to eat it if I just, I have to make it appealing for them. So I think
I agree. Heart is different because heart is not, the taste is very similar to just normal cuts of beef, but liver has a more like intense flavor. It's tougher to get the kids to like it, but as soon as you mix it with beef, no problem.
Yeah, I'll keep you updated how that goes when we do that for our kids. I'm excited to do that.
I'm sure you're gonna succeed.
Yeah. What are the most important foods for a child's growth and development?
Well, once again, animal-based diet is super important. That's where they get the nutrients from. And if you start like giving them more vegetables, more carbs, more grains, more legumes, they won't get what they actually need. And it's not that they won't get the nutrients. It's also that the defense chemicals will start messing up their digestive system, which is the idea. The plant wants to punish you for taking their babies away.
Yeah.
So that's very important. And a lot of children today, they have all kinds of allergies, and it's partly because they are having the food that they shouldn't eat, and it messes up their digestive system. So that's super important. I always try to give them the protein first. So meat, fish, or chicken first, so that they don't, because otherwise, if you put on the same plate the fruit with the protein, sometimes, I mean, they kind of like the fruit, but I mean, if they get full eating the fruit, well, then they don't have the protein and the fat. So that's also very important, the order that you give them the food.
Yeah, that's actually a tip that I need to work on, because I just put everything on their plate, and it's often like this. You're telling them to finish their meat, but they're full already because they've finished everything else.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a good tip.
Yeah, and also when you go to restaurants, the waiter gives out all the bread.
Yeah.
So that's horrible, because they get full on the bread. Even if you ask for a gluten-free bread, it's not such a good idea, because they get full of all the starch that they get, and then they're not hungry anymore.
Exactly. Well, you touched on this a little bit up until now, but how do you navigate modern food culture with your own children?
I think that the best way to get them interested in food is to cook with them. So I do invite them to cook with me, and with my wife, and we try to cook together. I think that's important, because then they start to get interested in what kind of ingredients do we put in here, where do the ingredients come from, what is animal based, what is not animal based. Some kind of food is like super, for example, an omelette or scrambled eggs. My kids, for example, my son is 4 years old. He can make his own scrambled eggs, and I think, kids are also very interested in they love to be in the kitchen. To be honest, I think all kids love that. So that's something that I try to get from when they're really young, to be in the kitchen with us, preparing the food.
That's important. And it's such an important point in our today's stressful life. We don't have the time to have our kids with us in the kitchen, because we just need to make dinner and put it on the table. But it's a really important life lesson. And yeah.
Exactly. And also explain to the kids where it comes from.
Yeah.
Where the tomato, where does the tomato come from? The pineapple, where does it come from? What country? How does it grow? Maybe show like a picture on your phone, like Google the picture and see, here it grows here, and maybe like find a YouTube video when they're like harvesting papayas or mangoes or apples, whatever. So I think that, kids are by nature very curious. They have a lot of curiosity, and if we show them where the food comes from, then they're like, wow, they love that.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you only go for processed food, well, the food comes in a package or in a bag or whatever, and you don't realize where it gets from.
Now, why do you think people are becoming sick and unhealthy? It's a big question, but why do you think that is?
Yeah, okay, so I do think that nutrition, food plays a huge role. And we already talked about this, how refined carbs and processed sugars, how bad it is for you. All these, lifestyle diseases, such as diabetes type 2, overweight, Alzheimer's, it's all about almost all about what you eat, okay? But there are other lifestyle habits that actually make people sick today, such as not having enough exercise. That is, of course, very important, but also being outside in the sun, even walking barefoot. In today's society, probably the biggest issue is that we get totally disconnected from nature. Nature is, we are designed to be in nature. We're designed to be outdoors most time of the day. We're not designed to be inside. We're not designed to sit in an office for 7-8 hours and then take the public transport back home and then sit in our sofa for another few hours, and then we spend too much time indoors. That is a very important thing. And actually, the sunlight should be seen as a nutrient, because it is.
Yeah.
It's not just about D vitamin that boosts our immune system. There are so many things with the sun that make us thrive. So yeah, okay, back to your question. What makes us sick? Well, there are a few things: nutrition, exercise, being outdoors, and of course sleep. I forgot sleep. So sleep is also something that makes us sick. Not getting enough sleep. And today it's more challenging than ever, because we have screens everywhere and anytime. So that's something I've been struggling with myself, to be honest. I got this Aura Ring, a few years ago, actually 6 years ago, and during those 6 years, I really made sleep one of my priorities to improve my sleep. And that I've done so many things during these 6 years to improve it, and I by average, I sleep more 1 hour more per night than I did 6 years ago, which is a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So basically, I slept like less than 6 hours per night 6 years ago, and now I sleep like 7 hours by average. So for me, it's a huge improvement. And so what do I do differently? There are a few things. So one thing is that I don't have dinner too late. And, in Spain, that's really hard, because most restaurants, they don't open until 8:30,
Oh yeah.
Yes, and most people eat dinner 9:30. I could have dinner with my kids at 10:30, so that's really challenging in Spain. So okay, so I eat dinner much earlier with my family, and that's one thing. The other thing is that I try to, when I get closer to go to bed, I just do like this to get my iPhone is with a red screen. Okay?
Oh yeah.
So that's very important, to bring down the light and to have the light red on your phone, because you're not supposed to get blue light in the evening. That's another thing. And also I try to, I love sauna and cold plunges. So I try to go like in the sauna, cold plunges a few times a week. That's also I think that actually improved my sleep. And the last thing, which is not, it's also very, I think it made a lot. Like 3 years ago, I completely quit alcohol. So I don't. Before that, I was never like, I didn't drink that much, but I did have a glass of wine or a beer several times a week. Not that I got drunk, but yeah, I did drink alcohol several times a week. And since I quit alcohol completely, I see this huge improvement in my sleep. That made like, on average, I would say 25 minutes per night on average.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So most people, they don't realize that even like one glass of wine actually ruins your sleep.
Exactly. So even though you sleep long enough, the quality of your sleep is reduced. Yeah. But what's your take on artificial sweeteners? Are they really better alternative to sugar? What's your opinion?
Artificial sweeteners and sugar. Well, both have their issues. And okay, so I mean, sugar, we know that our metabolism gets wrecked with refined sugar. That we know. And having too much sugar, well, it leads to insulin resistance, which leads to diabetes type 2, etc., etc. So sugar, refined sugar is not good for you. But the thing is that artificial sweeteners, they have their issues. So there are several like sucralose, all kinds of polyalcohols. They mess up your gut flora, your microbiome get messes up, and also it actually stimulates your insulin in a similar way that sugar does, because when you have something sweet in your mouth, it sends this signal to your system that something sweet is coming. So it actually spikes your insulin, and it could actually be worse, because then your body realizes that we didn't get any sugar. There is no we don't have the calories that we were expecting. So that's not. So your body gets really confused. So I mean, what we need to do is not depend on neither on sugar, neither on artificial sweeteners. What we need to do is like bring down the amount of sweetness that we need. That's what's so important.
Yeah.
And actually, after if you try that for a few weeks, then you will see that you don't crave as much sweet flavors as before. I can understand, I've been actually I have been craving for a lot of sugar in my life, so I know how hard it is. The sugar addiction is one of the most difficult addictions to get rid of.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So what you need to do is like little by little, just bring it down, because the less you eat, the less you crave.
Exactly. So in regards to when people are trying to improve their diet, what is, in your experience, the biggest mistakes that people make when they're trying to improve their diet?
I think that I believe there's so much misinformation or even disinformation out there. And it's such a pity, because a lot of people think they're doing the right thing while they're not. They follow guidelines that were written by organizations totally pressured by big food, and if you follow those guidelines, you will end up eating way too much carbs, way too little meat. So that's that's such a shame that you need to understand that behind all that information that you get, there is always economical interests behind. Someone is benefiting from sending out that information, and at the end it's just propaganda. So but that's what's so interesting, that we see the last 10 or 15 years with social media. You can actually find channels that sends out another message that is not biased in that way.
Yeah. So in your opinion, what are the biggest problems with big food and corporate influence in nutrition, just to sum it up?
Yeah, the big problem is that they are very powerful. Food is the biggest industry in the world. It's not hard to understand, because we eat 3 times a day on average. So the turnover is the number one turnover in the world, food. So the problem is that the big food is very, very powerful, very, very profitable. And when they want to send out a message, they just pay off nutritionists, doctors, and media. So these 3 categories, they will be happy to spread the message that big food wants to spread. That's what's really worrying. And as a consumer, you need to realize that how the world works.
Yeah.
You need to see through all that propaganda, and that's not easy.
Even though it's difficult to kind of wrap your head around it, it is kind of profit that is prioritized over our health.
Totally.
So we don't want to believe that, right?
Exactly. And I don't believe that people working at Unilever or Nestle or Kraft Foods, I don't believe that they are evil.
No.
It's not that, but it's just that they are in a big organization where profit is being what drives the organization in the way that where they go. So if they if they sit down to think, okay, what's good for the consumer, what's actually benefiting your health, then they will never like, yeah, people should eat more grass-fed meat. Yeah, okay, but the grass-fed meat, it's not profitable. People selling grass-fed meat, it's like more of a passion than a business. Where I find my grass-fed meat or wild-caught fish in Spain, there is small companies, family companies. Like it's not scalable. It's not a business that is scalable. You cannot to be able to scale a business in the food business. It's like it's very hard. So you need to see through that as a customer, as a client.
Yeah. Now, what's your opinion on lab-grown meat and insect-based protein?
Oof, horrible.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's two different things. Lab-grown meat is, as we said before, it's protein, plant-based protein, mixed with seed oils, mixed with additives, artificial colors, artificial aromas. It's like it's the worst. And if you want that lab-grown meat to contain nutrients, vitamins and minerals, well, then you have to add them. And those are synthetic vitamins.
Yeah.
No? Or you will have to get those nutrients from real meat, which then it doesn't make sense anymore.
No.
So yeah, it's just a horrible product. And what is, fortunately, we see those companies actually, they're not doing that great anymore. So there was a boom like 4 or 5 years ago with the Impossible Burger and yeah. So and actually the people have seen that it's a scam. Yeah, and then using insect protein as a protein source of protein. Well, that's not a great idea, because for several reasons, but maybe the most important is that there is an anti-nutrient in insects called chitin, and why? Well, because the insects are not that protected. They're easy to grab and to put in your mouth. So they just like plants, they have their anti-nutrients, which is chitin. So that's one reason why we shouldn't eat insects. At least we shouldn't eat insects in like lots of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We could go to Thailand and have like a grasshopper on the grill or whatever, but it's like it's not gonna harm you. It's not gonna kill you. And but then most insects also, they have heavy metals. There are compounds in the insects that we're not. It's not part of our culture to eat them for a reason. So it's not a good idea.
In regards to, you talked a little bit about earlier carnivore diets. They're a form of a ketogenic diet. But what's your take on ketogenic diets? Are they sustainable long term?
They are, obviously, because there are tribes around the world, and you can see like the Inuits. You can install. Well, you are from Iceland, the Inuits, and also in Africa, the Maasais, and they lived entirely of meat all year. So they are sustainable. I do believe, I mean, I've been experimenting a lot myself with the keto diet, and I believe for myself that I like to have some carbs, especially in the evening. I just feel that, and I mean, it may have to do with the cortisol levels, you know, the stress hormone, because when you get some carbs, well, when you're on the keto diet entirely, then your stress hormone, the cortisol levels, they go up, they raise. Okay, so and I can actually see that myself. I get kind of more anxious, stressed with only keto. So, but I mean, also it has to do with how much do you train, because if you train, if you exercise more, well, then probably you would need some carbs. I mean, there are triathletes, they're on a keto diet and it works perfectly. I mean, I think that's you need to experience that yourself and try it out and see. But I mean, keto diet, what's really important is to be metabolically flexible. You'll be able to go in and out to be able to be keto and then to leave the keto state, you know. The problem is today that most people, they never experience being in ketosis because they snack all day, they get all kinds of carb snacks, and that is horrible for your metabolism. And that's why fasting is so good for you, because then you force your body, you oblige your body to go into ketosis. You know. Back to your question, what do I think? Well, I think that keto is great, but in my case, I prefer to have some fruit, like more or less every day. Especially
now, just before we wrap up, Niklas, can you tell me something about your company, your business, Natruly? Why did you start that, and what is your mission?
Yeah, so I mean, as a gluten intolerant or even celiac, which is like the most, that you shouldn't eat any gluten at all. Sometimes it's hard to find quality food. So most gluten-free products are basically starchy products, which are, if you take out the gluten, well, it's still like very highly processed food. So the idea when I started with my business partner Octavio, when we started Natruly 8 years ago, we wanted to come up with a food brand that actually is healthy, but healthy, really healthy, and not just like labeling it as healthy. So we have all kinds of granolas, we have chocolates, cacao cream, cookies, nut butters, etc. As little processed as you could, like, as possible. For example, and our energy bars, they only have 3 or 4 ingredients, you know. Nuts, almonds, and figs, or some of them have other dried fruits, and as healthy as possible, as little processed as possible. So we started out with the granola. The granola was our first product, and then today we have more than 50 actually products on the market, and we are every year we come out with a couple of new products, and we're super proud of what we do. They are more expensive than the competitors, but our clients, they appreciate, the quality, the high quality that we can offer, and they're willing to pay a bit more for that.
Yeah, it's reflected in the quality. How do you hope?
Sorry, so no gluten, no sugar, no artificial sweeteners, and no additives at all. As natural as possible.
That's so important. How do you hope to influence?
Unfortunately, we are not in the northern Europe. You can find our products in Spain, Italy, and in Portugal. But little by little, I hope that we can expand through Central and Northern Europe.
Starting with Sweden, your own country, or?
Hopefully, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
I'm working on it. But you know, in the food industry, you need volumes, and to have small volumes, it's very hard to make money, and even to make it to profitability. So yeah, I hopefully Sweden is a pretty small market. Norway is even smaller, and Iceland is tiny. But I hope that sooner or later we're gonna be there.
Yeah. But the good thing about Iceland is if something becomes popular among just a few, then it's really well known in the whole country because we're so few of us. So hit me up if you're going to hit the Icelandic market.
I promise you I will.
Yeah. But how do you hope to influence the conversation around food and health?
Well, on one hand, debunking all the myths that we talked about, and on the other hand, help people to realize that making your own food is not that difficult, and it's a lot of fun. That's why I post a lot of recipes. For example, the burgers that you saw, calf's heart with beef, and I mean to actually try to get back to where we were like just 150 years ago, when everything was made in our own kitchen. We didn't buy any prefabricated processed food, you know. I think that's what I want to do.
Yeah. Are people becoming more aware of real food versus processed food, do you think?
You know, I think it's very polarized. I think that or you are interested and very much into real food, carnivore, keto, you know, that movement, or you're completely like in this matrix where everything is like packaged, you buy everything, you put it in the microwave oven, and you know, so I think it's getting more and more polarized. But hopefully the real food movement is growing a lot. It is growing, I'm optimistic.
That's good. What's your advice for
What do you think?
What do I think? Oh, well, yeah, I kind of think there's a growing movement, like you talk about, towards real food, especially when people, you know, experience health benefits firsthand and maybe share them on social media. Then it's easier to get the word around than hear of someone who has had, you know, a transformative health journey in relation to real healthy food. But I feel like there's such a big discussion about what the best food is, what real food is. So but also maybe I feel like after I started my health journey, maybe all my algorithms on everything I search for on social media platforms and the research articles and everything that I search on and read on, maybe that's why I feel like everyone is so interested in nutrition and health right now. But maybe it's kind of skewed, maybe because that's the algorithm that I'm on right now. So so maybe there's not as big of a movement as I maybe think it is. But I feel like at least after COVID, when people, you know, there's a lot that happened. People struggled with a lot of things, you know, with quarantine, and people were rediscovering themselves, starting new hobbies, starting training. You know, I feel like something has happened in the last 5 years at least.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. But talking about, you know, plant-based, animal-based, I was a vegetarian for a long time, vegan for some time, and then a vegetarian again. And then when I started incorporating meat again in my diet, I found it a little bit difficult. And that's at some point when my husband sent you a message, I think, on social media, on Instagram, and asked for any tips, advice for me, because I was struggling with my gut health. Yeah. But what's your advice, maybe in relation to that, for someone who's starting their journey towards an animal-based diet?
You know, I think the best way is to understand that there is a variety of not just beef and pork and goat and sheep and lamb, and there are so many all kinds of seafood, all kind of different fish. There's a lot. So I mean, maybe like the normal, for example, tenderloin or entrecote is not what suits you best. Well, then try to do like a slow cooked pork belly, or like fish in the oven, or like bone broth. Bone broth is usually something that is very easy to digest, full of nutrients and collagen and proteins, and I think it's important to just to be super open, and to experiment a lot. Eggs are another thing that is actually, most people find it very easy to digest eggs, and it's also very important to pick the right eggs.
Yeah.
Most of them are not that good quality, but if you can find eggs that are pasture raised, they are of course more expensive, but that's a good investment. So that I would just try to be as open as possible, and to see through the vegan propaganda that spreads the message that meat is gonna kill you.
If you could change one thing about how people approach food, what would it be?
Learn how to cook. That's so important.
Yeah.
Because once you learn how to cook, you're not dependent on anyone else. You don't depend on a restaurant. You don't depend on the frozen pizzas that you find in the supermarket. You're totally free when as long as you know how to cook, and it doesn't have to be that sophisticated. To make a scrambled eggs, or to just like fry a piece of meat in your frying pan. It's so easy. But a lot of people think that to be able to cook, you need to be a good cook. You don't have to. You just need to get started.
Yeah.
But once you get started, you learn. So learn how to cook. Very important. And also when it comes to money, I mean, once you start cooking your own food, you realize that all ultra processed food is super expensive. I did a few posts on this. When people tell me, yeah, you have a lot of money, you can buy grass-fed beef, you can buy this and that. Yeah, the thing is that ultra processed food is very, very expensive. They make a lot of money. The margins are super high. So yeah, learn how to cook.
Yeah, exactly. Lastly, I just want to ask you, you've kind of touched on this a few times throughout this episode, but how is your diet and your family's diet? What do you eat in a typical day?
In a typical day, well, in a typical day is in the mornings I have my butter tea with a few raw egg yolks. Then for lunch, well, my kids are at school, so my wife and I usually have lunch. We usually have lunch at home, and something really clean, like fish or meat. Any meat. It could be beef, it could be pork, and very clean, like maybe some avocado salad. And then in the evening, we do have. I love to put something on the grill. It could also be meat or fish or even seafood. In Spain, there are so many. The variety is like enormous, and to then we make like a salad, and the salad is basically fruit. On that salad, we vinegar, olive oil, some salt, and yeah, I mean, the older I get, the more the cleaner I like to eat, and I don't feel like it's getting like repetitive when it comes to, because as long as the meat and fish is like good quality, then you never get tired of that. That's like the best there is.
Yeah. And your kids, are they, is it difficult for them to not have what everyone else has, French fries every evening and chips and...
I don't think so. Actually, they just got home. If you hear some kids screaming downstairs.
I think mine are also coming home now.
Yeah. So I don't think so. Of course, I mean, when they get to school, when they have school lunches, they come home and say, Dad, why don't we have pasta? And of course, we can have some gluten-free pasta as long as the pasta is not the primary part of the dish,
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, they could get like interested in the other kids when they bring all kinds of pastries and carbs in their school bag, and my 4-year-old actually, he can ask me, well, why don't we have that at home? So then I have to explain to him that that's not what's gonna give you the muscles, that's not the little by little, it's
Niklas, it's been an honor. Where can people find more of your work?
Well, you can find as you've seen, my Instagram. Basically, on my Instagram is where you can find most of what I do, except for the podcasts, Hunger for Change. They are on YouTube and Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. And some of my stuff I post on Twitter, on LinkedIn as well. But I mean, Instagram and YouTube, basically.
I'll link to, in the show notes, some of your stuff so people can go to the show notes here and check you out.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I try to answer all the messages that I get on my Instagram. And I love to be in contact with my followers. That's great to get feedback.
That's good to hear. Awesome. Thank you so much for today, Niklas.
Thank you, Ragna. It was a pleasure. Let's stay in touch.
Let's do that. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning into this episode. If you're looking for more information or want to check out any studies I reference, head on to my website, babyletsmove.com. You can also join me for a workout through my app called Baby Let's Move, available in both App Store and Google Play. And don't forget to connect with me on Instagram and YouTube for even more content. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider giving it a 5-star rating or a like and share it with a friend. It really helps me reach more amazing listeners like you. Until next time, keep moving and stay healthy.